There are some places that are just not hospitable to mankind. This place, for some reason, is one of them. Better when you air it down. Makes for a smoother ride, less wear and tear. Okay. There's a cattle guard here with a fence and a sign that says Fort Piute and the Irwin Ranch. Well, that's where we want to go, so let's head out. This is Fort Piute. It is here because this is one of the few areas where the water is reliable. And the pioneers and the mail carriers and the travelers and the settlers will get water from here. Okay, let me explain how this all took place. This place was occupied by the ancient people before the American Indians. Then tribes moved in like the Chemehuevi and Piute. And then after them, the Europeans came in, particularly the Spanish. Father Garces came through this area. We have record of him passing through here from the Mojave Indian village up through the Mojave Road and the Government Road. Colonel William Hoffman and his 60 soldiers retreated to this area to make a stand. They knew there was water here that they could rely on, and with their provisions they would be able to outlast the Indians who were stalking them. Well, it was no surprise that when they went to make their stands, they were attacked by those very same Indians. And so Colonel Hoffman had half of his troops, 30 of his soldiers, fire at the Indians as they came at them. In that initial volley, they killed approximately 20 Indians. The Indians then, seeing that they were outmatched, turned around and left. They ran for their lives. At that point, this place then became put on the military map. Now, several months later, a Major James H. Carlton came here with the 1st Dragoons. A pretty bad group of soldiers. Soldiers you don't want to mess with. And he named this place Fort Bill after a Navy officer named Bill who had brought camels into this area as an experiment. That experiment that eventually didn't work out because the camels didn't get along with the horses, and the horses were definitely afraid of the camels. So Major Carlton named this Fort Bill. Now, the truth of the matter is, it was just an outpost. It was not a fort. But that's what he called it. And the name would last up until the very end in 1867, when the name would be changed to Fort Piute. Now, the Civil War took place, and the soldiers were called away. Now, they were here initially to protect the people and the water source, so that the pioneers, the mail carriers, government officials, people who would travel the road would not get attacked by the Indians. And that they would have a safe water supply, because this is where the Indians would come to ambush the pioneers as they traveled through the land. Now, Civil War came on, and when that took place, all of the military was called to fight in the Civil War, called back to the east. And this area became occupied by a 30-man militia of the citizens here to do the same thing, serve the same function, to protect this area for the pioneers, mail carriers, and those who traveled what was called the Government Road and now is called the Mojave Road. Now, after the Civil War, this was once again occupied by the military, although they probably never had more than 18 to 20 soldiers here. Because of the outcry of the settlers being harassed by the Indians, the pioneers being attacked, they felt that this presence needed to be here to protect the water and to protect the citizens traveling through the land. But life here was not easy. Although you see these buildings, the soldiers did not live in the buildings. They lived in tents scattered throughout here. I'll show you a fire ring over by the corrals where obviously a couple of them were stationed. So they lived in tents, and life was tough here for soldiers because probably, although they didn't have a fight every single day, it wouldn't be unheard of for them to have 3 or 4 life or death skirmishes at least a month, if not a little more, as the Indians tried to drive them out of here because this was a reliable water source for them as well. But that happened to no avail. This place was still guarded and they still fought off the Indians. Now, so as a soldier, you had to deal with life or death struggles when you were attacked by opposing forces. You also had to live out here in the environment. And I'm gonna tell you, this place can get bitterly cold and it can get wickedly hot. The wind almost constantly blows here. So, you know, you're just always under a state of siege from the environment itself. But it has water. And that's what's so important here, water, a reliable source. In fact, this Piute Creek is the only year-round creek in the entire Mojave Preserve. And that's saying something. It means it's dependable. It's a place you're gonna come, because way out there, almost 40 miles away, is Needles, and that's a long way to go without water. So life here for a soldier wasn't easy, which would explain the high desertion rate. It wasn't as high as at Rock Springs over there, but it was high nonetheless. Now, as a soldier here, you got to take your hat off to them because they were doing their duty, and those who stuck it out, I mean, it is amazing because there's nothing here. It is as primitive can be. The buildings you see are the only thing that isn't primitive. It is amazing. Now, as the life of a soldier, you were fed, but you had to fight. You had to do duties, and so they built these places and they took care of the livestock and brought in water, brought in wood for fires, and they kept order, and they had to take care of themselves as well. Now today, when you're here, the first thing you're going to notice is all these bugs, these little, I think they're called chiggers or no-see-ums. They're everywhere, and they're constantly jumping on you, in the camera, on my glasses, on my body. And so these men, they had to deal with that too. Why? Because there's water. There's water nearby. So life here was not easy for the soldiers that occupied this place. But they stuck it out and they made it last until 1868. At that time, the railroad had been completed and there was no longer a need for this road to be a major thoroughfare, so the military was removed. This is the walkways they built. And although they probably did not put the rocks here to line up, I'm sure that was put here by BLM or volunteers. These paths were established by them. And in fact, the government road went this way, and I'll show that to you in a little bit too, and has since been rerouted, and I'll explain how that happened in a little bit. In these trees is a plaque about the Chumavia, who were not agricultural people. They were hunters and gatherers. They roamed as far as the San Bernardino Mountains. Okay, and here we are in the corral. And you can see walls that were built by the soldiers. Now, I talked to you about the soldiers and stuff, and right over here it's going to be, and I'll show it to you, a picture of it in a second. It's going to be a, right over here is going to be a fire ring. So obviously some of the soldiers were over here in their tents to guard the livestock so that they wouldn't be stolen, which was a major problem, which the Indians love to do. Even though it's a remote location, the wind is constantly blowing here. It still has a serene feel about it. I mean, there's water here. You can survive here if you have a food source, which there are food sources if you know how to obtain them. We take our hat off to these soldiers who stuck it out to the end, to their duty here. And we want to give them thanks. Not because there was war between them and the Native Americans, but because they stood up to protect us, regardless of who the enemies were. And so we always want to thank our veterans and the soldiers who have done a fine job for us. And we want to also remind you that this place is now a wilderness, and if you come out here, respect what you've seen. And if you would, remember those peoples who were here in the past. Now this is an old fire ring right here that I told you about. And there's another one up there that's kind of torn apart. And I'll tell you right now, it's cool to stand where other people have stood who've made an impact on this world. This is Piute Creek. You can see the cottonwood trees losing their leaves because it's winter time. And you can see a trail going off towards Piute Gorge, and it goes over towards Rock Springs Creek as well, where there was a fort there, which will be an upcoming video. Now it's a hiking trail. It used to be the original government road, but it was so hard to get through that the people went an alternate route. So now it has become a hiking trail. Now, if you like this sort of thing, hit that like button. And you're free to share it. If you subscribe, you'll be able to see the other videos that are coming out in this, that I've done several in this area, and you'll be able to see those as well. I do want to thank you for watching the video all the way to the end here, and hit the bell and it'll notify you when the next video's out. Got these bugs on me. So, God bless. See you in the next one.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Got a buildup of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby I have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong